the question here is the role that splitting plays in many traditions and the impact it has on our clients. And you've heard me talk about splitting when I've talked about distortions of the life force. And hopefully depending on when and what your background is in NARM, it's like in the first book, there's this distortions of the life force chart where I talk about splitting there, where the child, in order to make sense of the failure of a parent to see them, to nurture them, uh, to to parent them in the way and to love them in the way that they need to, protects the parent's image by splitting the parent's image into the good parent and the bad parent, and the image of the self into the good self and to the bad self. And they often identify with the bad self. So this is just to give you a basic understanding of what splitting is. So that splitting has been a part of so many religious and spiritual traditions over centuries, that splitting between mind and body, for example, it's not uncommon in many Western traditions. The body is to be mortified. The body is bad. Sexuality is bad. Sexuality is evil unless it's under very certain circumstances. Certain kinds of sexuality are bad. So that and there's this whole dynamic of good and evil, which in itself is, is a kind of a splitting. This idea that there are forces of good and evil that are at war with each other and it's easy to go into those kinds of thoughts and beliefs because there is so much out there in the world that seems, uh, you know, inexplicable and is incredibly painful. It's no exaggeration to say that there is tremendous suffering on this planet. But when we come up with ideas that this is all part of evil, rather than the way the word sin, at least in some in some understandings, the way sin was intended to be used originally, at least this is what I've read, is that it meant ignorance. It didn't come to mean the meaning that it has, at least in modern Western understanding, and particular religious understanding. And all of these dynamics of thinking that we've got this good self and this bad self is based on splitting, and that even we get into some very big questions, obviously, about good and evil, but it's easy to think that there's evil given what we see around us all the time. But my experience is that when we work through all the various levels of distortions that we as human beings have taken on as we grow and develop, is that underneath those distortions is just simply heart. And there is no, this splitting of good and evil doesn't make any sense at that level of experience. That isn't to say, though, that human beings don't do terrible things, some things that seem evil, um, based on the distortions that they've experienced and taken on, from their environment.